It is 4:15 and I have Dr. John in the studio. Good afternoon, Dr. John.
Good afternoon, Mick.
Great to have you again. Of course, you're from Creation Ministries International. You guys have a website called creation.com that has, well, answers to probably every question you could think of with anything to do with evolution or creation. But we have you guys come in every week so as we can have a bit of a chat about evolution, creation, dinosaurs, aliens, all sorts of interesting things. And we'd love people to send their questions in, if they have any, to 0401 949 949. That's our text line. So you just text it through and we get the questions while we're sitting here. Dr. John, good to see you.
Well, it's great to be here again, Mick, and unfortunately, the last few weeks, I normally listen into the program when I'm not on it, but I haven't been able to the last few weeks because I've been interstate and had other things on that have stopped me from listening. So I don't know what you've been talking about,
right.
and that's a shame because usually when I listen in, whoever the speaker is, there's always something that they say that I can elaborate on or have a bit more input into. Not that they've missed anything, but, I just like to be able to add a bit more. But can't do it this week, so...
That's all right. Well, I've got a little bit of news I can ask a question about.
Yeah, okay, yeah, go for it.
Well, I noticed this news. This is just on Interesting Engineering website. It's just 3 days ago, I think this one came in. The headline is, "Gravity can exist without mass, and dark matter could be a myth."
I'm not sure what they're saying with that headline. Gravity can exist without mass, and dark matter could be a myth. Does that mean that can exist without mass and dark matter? The gravity could be a myth, I'm not sure. But,
I read through the story, and basically, because they're now saying gravity can exist without mass and dark matter, they sort of believe that dark matter was needed to somehow make gravity work. But now they're saying they think dark matter could be a myth. And that's something you've been saying for a long time now.
Well, dark matter has never been discovered. You see, it can't possibly be saying that gravity could be a myth. I mean, if that were the case, poor old Isaac Newton didn't get it right at all. But dark matter, certainly, I mean, the only reason for postulating dark matter is you've got to have more gravity or more mass to account for what's observed. But dark matter has never been observed. So, it could be a myth.
Yes, absolutely.
But it makes up a lot of the universe, the stuff that you can't see, can't measure, and don't know exists.
Yeah. So they say it's there, but really it's not.
well, that's right. But, you mentioned the Creation Ministries website before, and I'd like to just reiterate what you just said, that creation.com, if you've got any questions about anything, it's a great site to go to because it's got the 15,000 odd scientific papers on it, all that are readable at lay level, and you can access them all just by typing your question into the search window. It's as simple as that. And I was going to talk about something that was on the CMI website only in the last few days, and that's the issue of dinosaur footprints or trackways and dinosaur eggs that are found in thousands of places all over the earth.
Yep.
And it's a bit of a mystery how they might have got there. Obviously, dinosaurs made them, you know. But the interesting thing about it is that they're found on lots of levels, and sometimes when a rock layer is excavated, there's more trackways underneath that one. So you have these superimposed rock layers, one on top of the other. And, of course, the evolutionists sometimes date the difference between the layers at several million years. But the very interesting thing is that it looks like it's the same type of dinosaur that made the lower levels as the upper levels. That's pretty intriguing because
stuck around for a long time.
They have stuck around there for quite a long time. But really, one of the things that is very interesting is that they always seem to be horizontal layers. They're not going uphill, and the dinosaurs are always running in the one direction, and just one type of dinosaur, and they look as though they've been panicked a bit and they're trying to escape something. Well, it's interesting how those trackways might have got there, because people and animals these days don't usually leave tracks. You know, I mean, you might walk in the mud, and certainly you don't leave tracks when you're walking over rocks.
Well, interestingly, you see pictures and, you know, even the videos that they make up of dinosaurs often in rainforests. And I was in a rainforest over the long weekend. Now, of course, you leave tracks in there because it's just muddy, yucky ground. But there's lots of other tracks in there, and they're going in every which way direction.
Well, that's right, and they usually don't last. You know, the ones that you see are relatively fresh, not having been around for 65 million years, like, you know.
Well, they can't because it's so wet and gooey.
Yeah, well, that's right. So the question is, how did the dinosaur tracks get like that? Because they're in rock. So they must have been made when the sediment was soft, and somehow it hardened a little bit later on, and then they stayed there. Now, you don't normally find that. You know, if you go and put a handprint or a footprint in freshly made concrete, you know, and wait for it to harden, well, then it'll stay there. But under normal circumstances, that just doesn't happen. You can be walking along the beach with your dog, and you leave footprints, but the next wave or two, and they're not there anymore. So really, it is a bit of a mystery. But it now seems that, you know, what we feel at Creation Ministries, of course, is that Noah's flood is the explanation for it. And it's interesting that secular science now seems to be prepared to agree that it must have been a flood, at least a local flood. But, of course, we consider, you know, obviously the Bible says it was a global flood. And what seems to be most likely is that you know, they were made, and you wonder how it is that they might have been preserved the way they were. But when you look at what the Bible actually says about the flood, you can work out how it was possible that it could have happened, because the Bible, everybody knows that it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. Okay, we've you know, that's part of the story of Noah's flood that everybody hears. But most people don't hear the story about the subterranean water that was around as well, where something fractured the crust of the earth, and the Bible says the fountains of the great deep were all broken up.
Yes.
And so there was clearly volcanic activity and subterranean water all mixed in with the rainwater. But then when you look a little bit further, you see that it took 150 days, which is 5 months, for the water levels to reach their peak and then begin to subside. And all of this activity is going on all of that time. So it stands to reason that there could have been a whole group of animals trying to escape and leaving footprints in mud. And that area might have been lifted up and elevated and then exposed for a while so that it could harden. And of course, it's not likely that exactly the same thing was happening all over the earth, right? And then we have to remember that tidal activity was going on all of that time as well. So, you know, twice a day there's tides sloshing in and out, and in some places those tides are very, very high. Or very, very low, as the case may be. So really there's lots of explanations that you can get when you have a look at what the Bible actually says. So we shouldn't be surprised that we find the differences all over the world, and also that we find the dinosaur eggs the way they are, because there's no evidence in most of the cases anyway that those particular dinosaurs have made any nest. They've just dropped the clutch of eggs where they were. Mm-hmm. And of course, with birds lay an egg a day. But reptiles don't. They lay the whole clutch at once.
All at once, yep.
Yeah, so it looks as though they didn't have time to make any type of nest. I mean, at least the turtles, when they lay their eggs, they go and scoop out a bit of the sand and, they make some sort of nest. But you don't find any evidence of nests with these dinosaur eggs. They've just been dropped in the spot. Mm-hmm. And they're always, they look as though they've been stampeding in fear. So really it's a very intriguing thing, but you seem to be able to make some sense of it when you actually look at what the Bible actually says. And anyway, look, I'm going to go on with this a bit afterwards, because there's a few other things that have been in articles on the website recently, all about ancient animals and dinosaurs and things, and particularly mammoths. And I want to talk about that when we come back.
It's intriguing. Prints, 3 million years apart, and they all go in the same direction. They're the exact same dinosaur. Sounds a little bit fishy to me. You're on 94.9. It is 27 minutes past 4. We've got Colton Dixon up next. This is Build a Boat. That was Brandon Murphy with All the Wrong Things. You're on 94.9. It is 24 minutes to 5. And we have Dr. John in the studio with us from Creation Ministries International. And you can send a question through to Dr. John on 0401 949 949. Now, Dr. John, you've been talking about, a lot of footprints left in the mud or the sand. And if memory serves me correctly, you're saying a lot of the footprints are all going in the same direction, even footprints from dinosaurs millions of years apart on different levels that happen to be the same dinosaur. If memory serves me correctly, the Valley of the Whales, all the whales were going in the same direction. And in the past, with other Creation Ministries guys, we've talked about different fish and whales and things on beaches. Again, they all seem to be going in the same direction and always similar types, as though there's just some massive sort of wall of mud hitting them all at the same time.
Yeah, look, there are so many fascinating observations throughout the world, and there's all sorts of different explanations put out for how things got to be the way they are. But when you read the Bible, you find that that there's an explanation there that does make sense, even though you don't really know what it is. And I talked about the dinosaur trackways, but there was another article on the Creation Ministries website about the the mammoths in Siberia. Mm-hmm. And that's something that's intrigued people for years. How is it that there were millions of mammoths, carcasses, not so much fossils, just frozen mammoths in this area in Siberia? And nobody really seems to know exactly how it could have happened, because we've talked about the Ice Age on this program before, and we do know that northwestern Europe, at least, was certainly frozen solid for probably several centuries after the flood. Mm-hmm. But what about the mammoths? Because they were clearly grazing on grassland, and there are millions of them, and then somehow or other they got snap frozen, some of them in a standing position, and some of them torn apart by maybe gusts of cyclonic winds or something like that. the world's come up with all sorts of possible explanations, but nobody really seems to know how it could possibly have happened.
Yep.
Because some of them, they've got the grass that they were feeding on there in their stomachs. So it wasn't frozen solid when they were eating,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden something happened and they got frozen solid.
Yeah.
So what is it? And I've been personally intrigued about that for years, but I reckon some of the events that are described in the Bible might really give us a clue as to what happened. And we think that things like Noah's flood might have been miraculous, and that's possible. Mm-hmm. But Noah was given 100 years to build the ship. Yep. So God knew what was coming, and I think some of these things might have been built in right from the beginning of creation in God's foreknowledge, knowing what was going to happen down the time scale, mm-hmm. and things happened as He had built it in. Mm. And there's a couple of other events that I think are very, very interesting that may give that explanation. I mean, when we talk about Noah's flood, it was part of the judgment of God, because we're told that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually, and the earth was filled with violence. So the flood came as part of God's judgment. Now, I believe that God didn't just go zap. I think it was all built in to happen the way it did, right from the beginning of creation. And then you think about the story in Genesis about the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, how fire and brimstone rained down from heaven and destroyed those cities. Yep. Well, obviously God could have done a miracle, but maybe in His foreknowledge it was all planned that was going to happen at that time. Yep. Because the angels told Lot and his family, "You better hurry up and get out. We can't wait any longer." Yep. So I think again that's part of the foreknowledge of God. And then we think about two other events that are really intriguing. One of them is in the book of Joshua, where Joshua is fighting the Amorites, and we get that story about the sun standing still for a whole day. Yep. To give Joshua time to wipe them out. Yes. Now, was that a miracle, or did something happen that made the sun apparently stand still over that area of the Middle East? Mm. And if so, what was it? Yep. Now, could it have been some sort of asteroid impact that turned the Earth? Who knows? But we don't know what suddenly froze the mammoths, do we? So maybe something that happened in the Middle East had repercussions throughout the rest of, or something that happened somewhere on the earth had repercussions throughout the rest of the world. And then we get the story where Isaiah goes to King Hezekiah. And Hezekiah wants a sign from the Lord that he's going to live an extra 15 years or something like that. And Isaiah says, well, what sort of a sign do you want? And Hezekiah says, well, get the Lord to make the sundial go back 10 degrees. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a pretty tricky thing to do. Yes. But that's what happened. Yep. And that was the sign given to Hezekiah. Isaiah said, the Lord's going to provide a sign. Well, again, was that a miraculous event right then? Mm-hmm. And or was it actually built into the world right from the beginning of creation?
Yeah.
I suspect it was, because God has foreknowledge of all of these things, and he knew what Hezekiah was going to ask.
Yep.
But how is it that the sundial could go back 10 degrees in the Middle East? What was happening in the rest of the world?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we just don't know. And that brings me to the other intriguing thing, of course, that we really ought to all take notice of, because there are going to be some other things happen cosmically that we really don't know what's going to be the cause. And we've got none other than Jesus himself foretelling it, because he says that what's going to happen is that the sun's going to be darkened, the moon won't give its light, the stars are going to fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens are going to be shaken. Now, that may not be too far off. We simply don't know.
Yeah.
But Jesus said it's going to happen, so it is going to happen. And he does tell us that we really need to be reading the signs of the times. You know, we know when it's going to rain, we know when it's going to snow, and we know when it's going to be fine. But do we not read the signs of the times? And he said, as it was in the days of Noah, and as I just said before, in the days of Noah, the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Are we not seeing a lot of that in the world today?
Yeah.
You know, and the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, well, we all know what that was about. Are we not seeing a lot of that in the world today?
Yes.
So really the time is ripe for all these sorts of things to happen, and they are going to be terrifying when they do. But it seems to me that most of the Christian churches don't seem to be talking about it, and a lot of Christian people are probably unprepared for what may be coming.
Absolutely.
So, you know, Jesus says, look, watch and pray, you know, be ready lest these things come upon you unexpectedly, because they will be unexpected. But we have to be ready at all times. Now, he gave that warning 2,000 years ago. Okay, well, we can say, well, look, you know, nothing's happened 2,000 years. Maybe won't happen for another 2,000 years. But I think the signs of the times suggest that it could be a little bit earlier than that.
Yes, I've certainly heard a few pastors mention it, and it seems that way when you look at what's going on in the world. Read your Bible, you'll figure it out.
Yeah, well, I think we're headed for a very, very interesting time in the not too distant future. You know, I mean, the US election is one that's going to impact the whole world. You know, they always said, you know, when America sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold.
Yep.
You know, so whatever happens there, the rest of the world can't escape.
Yep.
And who knows whichever way that election goes, who knows what's going to happen. So I think we all need to be very, very prayerful and think, Lord, I want to be pretty close to you for what might be going to happen in the very, very near future.
Yes. It's, I mean, we see these things happening every day, and even with things like, you know, what's going on in the Middle East and America's sort of just the news, you know, today or last night's news that they're going to be stepping in and providing help inside Israel with their own troops. We know that things are happening in the world that are flashpoints that could they could change things tomorrow, and we'd better be ready.
That's right. I mean, you know, things could happen in 24 hours, 48 hours. You know, they say a week's a long time in politics. Well, it's certainly a long time in world affairs too, particularly when there's wars and rumours of wars going on all around us.
Yes, yes. I mean, some people probably think we need to see a few more wars because of the wars and rumours of wars, but at the end of the day, there's a few going on and a lot of people are involved, and it's scary times. So we've got to be prepared. We need the oil in our lamps to make sure that we're ready for
Absolutely.
that particular time. Dr. John, we've come to the end of another awesome week. And look, I look forward to next week. You'll be here next week?
I'm here again next week, and send in your questions. If there's anything you want us to talk about, by all means, text them in to 0409 0401 949 949.
That's it, 0401 949 949. Thanks again, Dr. John. You're on 94.9. It is 10 minutes to 5.